Happy day people, this is Ramya Venkat from the Postgraduate Department of Business Administration, MBA. So today we will be discussing about the topic Porter's 5 Forces model, which is one of the topics under marketing management. So who is Michael Porter, the one who proposed the Porter's 5 Forces model? He's a very renowned business thinker and he proposed this model in the year 1979 through his white paper, The 5 Competitive Forces That Shape Strategy. This was published as a white paper in the renowned Harvard Business Review and it created raving reviews in the industry subsequent to that. This model is so powerful that in spite of being proposed in the year 1979, it still holds a lot of relevance even in this year 2023. We have seen a lot of technical innovations, the internet age has come through, the business models have changed, the customer tastes and preferences have absolutely changed. In spite of all of these radical changes that have happened in the environment, this model still holds a lot of meaning in the given setup. So what exactly is it? Normally, when a company enters a new industry, they are always throwing the spotlight on what their competition has to offer in the name of products and services, how should I relatively position myself, etc. But here the spotlight is completely on competition, right? That should not be the case. These 5 forces that are identified by Michael Porter actually suggest what are all the other external influences that can also make an impact to the business, influence the way the business frames its strategies over and above the competition spotlight that they already have. So there are 5 major forces. Number 1, threat of substitute products, threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of consumers, and the competitive rivalry that exists in a given industry. So now let us try and understand what each of these forces mean in the given setup. Competitive rivalry. Now there are quite a few companies which are available in a given industry. Some industries which will have a fragmented number of companies operating, but some others will have very few players in the given industry. This is what we will try and understand in economics, right, as monopolistic competition, oligopolistic competition, etc. So if a company is operating in a space where there is a lot of fragmented set of players in the given industry, then the pricing and other campaigns and strategies that they will eventually frame has to abide by the rules of the industry, because you cannot try to jack up the prices because there are already other players who can offer at better prices than what you do, and you will tend to lose your customers. So you need to sail with the current that is there in the given industry. Besides, how do you differentiate your offering? What is your USP compared to the products and service offerings from the other companies? So for that, you need to highly indicate in terms of features that you're packing inside your product and the services that you can offer over and above the product that you have in the offering. So these things will dictate the superiority of your product compared to what others are also offering. Besides, if you notice, there is a brand familiarity and identity for certain companies. Like if it's a very established company in the given industry, like what you see about Colgate in the dental hygiene segment, people are strongly brand loyal to a given product. So if you are a new entrant in that particular space and trying to grab customers, it is very difficult to wean them off their existing brand and ask them to try out your new brand. So this also proves to be a very unattractive space for a new company to enter in a given industry. Besides, if you look at, there is not just competition from the local companies. Now it is the age of globalization, so the product offerings over and above the local offerings are also from the global companies which enter different markets to jack up their profits. So your product has to live up to the local competition as well as the superior offerings from the global companies. So to that extent, you need to create technically innovative products. So that is the thing about competitive rivalry. Moving on to the next point, the threat of new entrants. So if you look at different industries, some of them have a very high entry barrier. For example, a very cost-centric manufacturing business means it sucks up a lot of initial setup costs. So that proves to be a very unattractive proposition for a new entrant into that space. Some companies tend to establish themselves in terms of strong economies of scale. So what is economies of scale? When you manufacture in lots, you manufacture massively, the per unit cost of manufacture drastically comes down. In certain manufacturing-centric businesses, this helps them to offer their products at very competitive prices because in spite of the profit margins that they pack inside, their manufacturing cost itself is less. This is how they capitalize on the concept of economies of scale. But when you are a new entrant in that space, you are still coming up the learning curve. So you cannot now capitalize on the economies of scale. So you tend to price your products at a higher price, which might not prove to be very attractive. So that is the second problem when you have high economies of scale which is there. Third, in terms of exit barriers. Generally, it is an attractive proposition to have a low exit barrier, because if as a new entrant you are not able to sustain, you can still go about exiting from that industry and salvage whatever value you can. But if a particular industry has a very high exit barrier, like what you see with the mobile towers that are established by mobile service providers, in that case, it becomes difficult for companies to exit from the given industry. So that proves to be a very unattractive proposition for a new entrant. When the switching costs are low, then that is a very favorable situation for a new entrant, because people don't mind shifting loyalties from one brand to the other. So they don't mind trying out new products. So those are the parameters with reference to threat of new entrants in a given industry. Moving on to the next one, bargaining power of buyers. So different industries have different set of buyers and suppliers. Say there are too many buyers in a given industry, which means it makes it easy for the supplier to sell his product. But on the other end, when you have a lesser number of buyers in the given situation, then these buyers tend to unite together and they negotiate terms in terms of pricing. They want superior quality in the product and a lot of services added on for the given pricing itself. So that way, for the bargaining power of supplier tends to be high when there are lesser number of suppliers in the given industry. Other than that, if buyers are price sensitive, so suppliers have to offer their price, products at a pricing well within the margins. They cannot try and offer it at higher margins, because due to price sensitivity which is packed in that particular product, buyers will shift loyalties. So the bargaining power of buyers tends to be higher when there is a lot of price sensitivity with reference to the product or service under consideration. We also have the product differentiation, which plays a very big role. If you look at the mobile handheld device, there are so many companies like Samsung, you have OnePlus, you have Apple, a whole lot of companies which have their own offerings. Of this set, Apple is able to charge you a much higher price because the product differentiation is very well established there. They charge you for the brand, they charge you for the superior features that they pack inside the handheld device. So that way, product differentiation means it can prove to be attractive or unattractive to the buyer depending on how the company showcases the differentiation in the particular product. We move on to the next called bargaining power of suppliers. In certain industries, there will be less number of suppliers. For example, industries which are dependent on oil products, where the crude oil prices are fixed in a centralized manner. So such industries again do not have a lot of bargaining power from the buyer side. It is the suppliers who dictate the prices at which the products will get offered. Or industries where the suppliers have access to a scarce resource, or they are really large. In that case also, suppliers tend to have a cartel and they tend to standardize the prices and leave no room for negotiation from the buyer side. Certain times, a specific component or a specific raw material that you need for your manufacture comes from only one or two suppliers. Example, in the manufacturing setup, say you're dependent on the government's electricity board. They have a pre-specified tariff on the commercial offerings. Here again, you don't have a room to negotiate on the prices because you cannot have an alternate where you can generate your electricity from. You are dependent on the central state electricity board. So whatever tariff they dictate, you simply have to follow that and go ahead with it. So like that, depending on how the material is, depending on what sort of supplier network exists in a given industry, the bargaining power of suppliers tend to vary. Here there is this concept of forward integration. Many times along the value chain, the suppliers themselves integrate forward. A typical example is that of textile mills. So these mills, they begin with procuring cotton and then spinning yarns out of it. So the typical supplier could be one who supplies yarns to textile mills, which is then woven into fabric and yardages. But there are cases where the spinning mills themselves establish textile mills, so the yarns that they manufacture is eventually made into yardage and sold out. So they have forward integrated in the value chain. So here they are commanding a lion's share of the value chain itself, so they don't have to part with their profits along the value chain with middlemen. Threat of substitute products. Out of the 5 forces, we are in the 5th force, which is threat of substitute products. So if there are very few substitute products that are available or complementary products that are available in the offering, here again there is a lot of prominence for our product in the offering. If you look at some of the innovations, like during Corona, Zoom is a company which was in existence for a very long time. But because of the environment that fostered Corona working, where you didn't interact with people face to face and you could only do it through video calls and things like that, Zoom as a provider became very dominant. So that was a substitute for people interacting with each other. In fact, if you look at video conferencing facilities, they have replaced the need for people to travel to client sites, because now you can conference on videos from your own comfortable locations, from your own local offices. So these are the cases of substitute products, how they play a role in your overall business environment. To sum up, we see that all these 5 forces are extremely dominant in influence the business scenarios. So business here is to generate profits, to create wealth for its shareholders, and to last in the business. So this can be made possible when they understand the impact of these 5 forces and accordingly frame their strategies and execute them. Thank you.